Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. How's it going? I hope you're doing awesome. We're doing something new here. You asked Dan questions in AMA style, ask me anything, but this time is ADA or ADA. Ask Dan anything. Hey there, Dan. How's it going?
Hey there, my man, buddy. Life is wonderful. So glad to be here with you with the new Ada edition. I was actually telling you earlier that Ada is one of my favorite fictional characters in the Resident Evil series. She's an Asian spy who just knows how to run around Raccoon City and whatever. So when I heard about Ada, I feel like, man, that's going to be a great idea. So why don't we just get started with Ada?
I'm going to jump
Daniel
on it.
It's going to be amazing.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to kick it off with a good one. First of all, I'm gonna apologize if I mispronounce your names because some of them are really hard and I'm not sure what to pronounce them. So I hope I get them right.
All right.
I think
That's right.
Bogdan.
Well, before I actually go into the questions, I would like to thank all of our listeners, basically the fans. They really do keep us going, basically. So just wanted to thank him so much for all the questions. And obviously, I try to answer a lot of those questions on Instagram stories. I mean, and of course, some of the questions I just responded directly with, via text because they didn't require, a very detailed answer, basically. And some of the, the comments I got were not even questions. They were like, you're cool, you're great, that kind of stuff. So they were not questions. So
Right.
First of all, thank you very much for all of you for your basically comments on my stories. And I really appreciate it. Thank you for all the comments, and the questions were all great. I've already answered some of your questions directly via DM. And of course, some of those have been now chosen to be discussed here because of lack of time, obviously. Every single time we're going to do one of these, we'll choose about, I don't know, probably about a dozen or so, nothing more than that, because it's going to take a lot of our time. And I will try to give, detailed answer to all of these questions now.
Lovely. Just lovely. Okay, let's try it. Let's try it out. Okay, so Bogdan asked the question again. I'm sorry if I pronounced that inaccurately, but
I think you pronounced it pretty well, man. Don't worry
right.
about it. It's
Okay, awesome.
It's a Russian name, probably.
Okay, cool. And his question is, how can you speak Russian so good? And that's a good question because that's my question too. How can you?
All right, very well. So later on, I'm going to actually ask your feedback on the questions because I know that some of these questions actually are yours as well. So if you had any other questions, and of course, I would appreciate, your extra questions to me because, you're the host, obviously. So I would be glad to actually get further answers. But as to answer Bogdan basically here, number one, speaking a foreign language well, from my perspective, is not something, it's like it takes a lot of skills or talents. It's something that anyone can do, like almost anyone can do. Because if you're right now talking to me, you speak one language pretty well, and that's your mother tongue. This means that every single one of us has the capacity to learn a foreign language pretty well. It's a universal skill. We all have it, basically. But the problem is when it comes to learning a foreign language as an adult, there are a lot of other issues basically involved with this. And of course, as you already know, I'm working on basically my own book, which is called the Polyglot Guidebook. And the first draft is completely finished, about 120 pages already done. Of course, we want to actually add more material and references. But basically, I have my own method for learning foreign languages, and I call it the Mulligan method. And this is a method designed to help people learn a language in the modern world using basically online facilities, apps, the internet, and the chance to travel cheap because of, obviously in the modern world, we have a lot of advantages that we did not have, let's say 10, 20 years ago. I don't know, things like couch surfing or, I don't know, Airbnb and so many other great facilities that make traveling affordable for the masses, basically. Other than that, I really believe that learning a foreign language comes down ultimately to one thing, and that is how much you care about it and how much you want to do this. Because if you have a strong enough will and motivation, you will definitely learn to speak any foreign language well. And for me personally, that's one of my biggest passions in life, which is why I've chosen international business as well as basically linguistics as my major areas of expertise, because I love this field. I really feel there's a great thing to be discovered about life when you go about different cultures and languages. And generally, I'm also a huge fan of more exotic languages. I mean, of course, it's very nice to learn things like French and German. Of course, I speak them as well. But there's a very huge difference when you literally look for, let's say, YouTube. I mean, today, literally, I was actually on YouTube and I was trying to find new channels on YouTube in different languages. And actually, I found a lot of great channels about the things that I find interesting in a variety of languages, including Greek, Dutch, Hindi, and I was really fascinated by, the differences you see. Like when you're watching, let's say, a blogger, from Netherlands who's blogging, let's say, about relationships, and I really found it very exciting, and interesting. And then you actually move on and you watch an Italian, for example, blogger talking about his stuff, and then you move back to Hindi, and you realize that most Indian, basically, bloggers don't really put themselves on camera. Could be a cultural thing. I don't know really. Like they actually prefer to just talk over, let's say, slides and whatever it is. And then you go back, listen to other more exotic languages like Czech, like Hungarian. And for me personally, as you know, I'm a polyglot, and this is one of my biggest passions in life. Not everybody necessarily has to learn, I don't know, 23, 30, 40 languages or whatever it is. It depends on you and your passions in life. Maybe for
Hold
you,
on a second.
learning one language.
Wait. How many
That's right.
did you just say?
Well, as when it comes to like, proficiency, it's about 23, but I know about 40 languages on a very basic level, of course.
Smokes, that's like
That's right.
well, no, but the thing you just said was like nobody needs to go like 23. I was like, nobody thinks to do that.
Exactly. That's right. You see, we all have passions left, right? And for example, you yourself, Pujix, you're an immigrant, and you probably are one of the best, basically, speakers of English I've ever seen among all
Thank
of
you.
my friends and acquaintances. And you are a great example of the fact that you do not speak, I don't know, dozens of languages, but you do speak foreign language very, very damn well. And I think that's what most people need. I mean, for the same reason that, I don't know, not everybody, let's say, we have, let's say, an electricity engineer who knows everything about electricity. But at the same time, we have those who go home and just, turn the switch and get the electricity, right? For the same reason that people who use light in their home do not need to know basically anything about electricity, and the fact that an engineer in the field of electricity knows probably 1,000 times more about electricity than anyone else basically ever needs. The same thing goes with me. So actually, as my education, my official education, one of them actually is about linguistics. So for me, that's a passion. And one of the major reasons that I like to study all these languages is because I, at some point, intend to actually have conferences and seminars, basically in these countries, and I would like to establish businesses. So for me, that's a lifestyle. Not everybody works in international business. Not everybody, cares about running a business in India or, I don't know, Czech Republic. So for the same reason that I basically do not have to know a lot about electricity, but I can still use it, you do not necessarily need to learn 40 languages to be able to actually learn one language very well, right? And because of this, I really believe that my method and my mission is not to make people hyper polyglots. I'm not trying to inspire people to learn a lot of languages, because I really believe that that's actually not necessary, and you're being counterproductive if you're learning a lot of languages. Because for most learners for whom learning a language is not a lifestyle, as it is for me, learning a lot of language actually will be worse. I know a lot of my own students actually around the world who see me, it's like, damn, you speak all these languages. I want to learn 3 more too. And as soon as they start doing this, then their English actually falters. And I tell them, like, dude, listen, I really appreciate the enthusiasm. You definitely want to learn German and French, but look at your English, man. I mean, it's actually suffering. So isn't it just better to just quit French and German right now and focus on your English, because that's a lot more important? So for the same reason, I really believe that your measure of proficiency is not necessarily about how many languages you speak. It's rather about how well you speak those languages. And in the Malden method, actually, my focus is exactly on this, is exactly on learning a language at a level so well that you can actually basically find yourself fluently speaking wherever you are in all situations. So that is really my target for the masses. I am not encouraging people to become hyper polyglots like I am. Instead, I want them to use what I used to learn languages to focus and master one language.
That's a very fair point, and I think it's. I agree with you. For the most part, you have a point on why are you trying to learn a language. There has to be a point. It's not just for fun. I mean, it can be, but at the end of the day, if you're learning English because you want to immigrate, for example, then you better be damn well good at it. Otherwise, you're gonna have some troubles. So I get that.
Exactly. Look at yourself right now, Pujix. You're a super duper physicist, right? And I remember I struggled so much with physics basically in high school, but for me, I had to finish high school, which meant I needed to finish my physics. Now, does that mean that after graduating from high school, I'm going to go and study physics? Not necessarily. The same thing applies to linguistics, in that not everybody should become a polyglot with a deep knowledge of, I don't know, lots and lots of languages in order to get by in life. But we all need, at least, I really believe that if you are living outside of the United States, Canada, Australia, England, basically, and other, native speakers of English, if you're living outside of those, countries, you definitely have to learn English. If you're not, then you're falling behind the masses. And because of this, really my mission, hopefully, in the coming decades is to actually help a lot of people around the world and encourage them to learn at least one foreign language well, ideally English, if they're living, in other countries. And if they already know English, my wish for them is to actually learn that language very well and then hopefully learn another. But ultimately, my focus is on mastery. It is not on learning a lot of languages because that's simply not necessary. And I really know a lot of people who, for example, have this, very thick accent when they're speaking. They're rather fluent from my perspective, but they have this very thick accent and they make some, weird mistakes. And then they say, okay, now it's time for me to learn German. Dude, come on. When you're speaking English, you have a very thick accent. If I were you, I would dedicate 2 extra hours to improving my pronunciation. I wouldn't just learn German because that's not for you right now, right? And because of this, I really believe that it's much better to focus on mastery. And of course, I'm very encouraged by the compliment about my Russian. And I actually had a couple of interviews in Russian a while back, and I realized that it's pretty good. I feel like that the Mulligan method really works, not only for me, but also for those that I have used it for. But ultimately, the answer is only one thing: the Mulligan method. And hopefully, I will be sharing that in depth in my podcast, basically, which is the one of the editions of our B2B podcast called the Polyglot Edition, as well as the upcoming book. And hopefully we're working on it. And I'm pretty sure that once the book is published, you'll have the chance to dive deep into this basically method. And it's very simple. It's very easy. And there are 3 stages in the Mulligan method: the stage of parrot, the stage of actor, and the stage of fluent speaker. And in depth, hopefully, will be covered. But if I wanted to summarize all these things in one word, I'd say passion and hard work. Because, unlike, for example, you can be born, let's say, in a family that is wealthy, and you will have a lot of money right off the bat, right? And there are a lot of things in life that you can actually get by chance. Let's say you were born very attractive physically, or you're born, let's say, very muscular, or your body is designed in a way that is very flexible, so you can be a good dancer. There are a lot of advantages, of course, but when it comes to learning a foreign language, you can never inherit it by itself. You really got to put in the hard work. And that is why when I see people who have mastered a foreign language, I know that these guys are capable of doing a lot of great things because they have worked very hard at it. And because of that, they have achieved this result. So because of this, I think of, mastering a foreign language as one of the pinnacles of achievement that is possible, because in order to master a foreign language, it's not just, I mentioned also in my book that just like all other things in life, success in language learning is only 20% mechanics and 80% psychology. And I really believe if you can master a foreign language, you can do almost anything else. And hopefully in the upcoming programs, the Polyglot Edition, as well as the book, we'll discuss in detail how to actually become very fluent. But then again, I'm very flattered for the compliment.
All right. Next question. It's from, actually, it's quite related, and that's from Hasti. She asks, how can you have time to do more things? And, well, learning 23 languages takes a lot of time. Besides that, you have other, busy stuff that other stuff that you're busy with. So how can you have so much time doing so much things? Damn it.
That's right. Well, you're absolutely right. And I also mentioned this a little bit, on the stories. And now I'm going to give you, the full answer here. Basically, I also, made a tweet about this a while back. If you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. You see, we're living in a world where we think that the key to productivity is to just free up time and not do anything else. And in one of my basically meetings with one of my mentees, I was telling him about this issue, and he said, like, Dan, I just want to quit my job and I just want to spend more time to study, basically. And I'm moving to Canada. I got to study my IELTS, and I want to just dedicate more time. I said, don't do that. He was like surprised, like, what? But I want to get a good score in IELTS. I said, if you right now quit your job to study IELTS, not only you will not pass the IELTS test, you will actually be very depressed and probably even lose your motivation to go to Canada. So what I said was, instead, not only do not quit your job, get 2 extra hobbies that you would like, and at the same time put time for basically physical activities, because he hasn't gone to the gym for a long time, and only then dedicate the rest of that time to IELTS. He was like surprised, for like, what are you talking about, Dan? Are you sure? You've been smoking or something? And I said, it's very simple. If you quit your job to create free time for IELTS, the problem is it's not really the time that we put into our pursuits, but rather the quality of the mental as well as emotional engagement with them. So I'm sure we all know, we had the experience of going to a lecture, a boring class, or a boring event where we were there for hours, but after a while we didn't remember what happened. Like, what? Because the brain was disengaged. So the key to productivity from my perspective is, number one, key emotional states. That is, in NLP we call this peak state, right? When you're in peak state, It's a similar state as if you have been doing drugs, but it's actually created naturally using your psychology and your biology without any chemicals or substances. And when you're in peak state, you're in a good emotional state. You feel very good about yourself, and you're in motion. You're in movement. And here's what happens. When you're in motion and movement, when you're busy with different tasks, your body produces a lot of great happy hormones. We call it also the flow hormones, basically, right? And these pleasure hormones will allow your brain to become basically hyperactive and very efficient. This means that, for example, if it takes you, let's say, 30 minutes just to get focused on, let's say, grammar drill in a foreign language, now if you're in peak state, you can do that in less than 30 seconds, and boom, you're in, right? So because of this, they say nothing succeeds like success. And if you want to get things done, give it to a busy person. I believe that the key to productivity is actually to do a lot of things and to do different types of pursuits simultaneously, because one of the laws of nature is that whatever you want to accomplish, you will accomplish it in the deadline that you give to it. So, for example, if you want to, let's say, I don't know, do your term paper, if you give yourself 3 months to do that term paper, you will accomplish that exactly 3 months, which means for the first 2 months, you do nothing. So you literally do nothing. You put it off. In the last month, you become a little bit concerned about the whole thing, right? So, I got to do my term paper, right? And you actually start writing in the last 2 weeks. Again, a little bit, just the basic framework. And as you know, probably you'll do most of that job in the last few days before you have to submit that paper. Why is that? It's because the time that we give ourselves, that deadline, the subconscious mind then goes into action. It says, all right, so how much time do I really need to get this thing done? Okay. And then it'll actually create a pattern in your brain that allows you to accomplish it in that very specific period of time. So here's a fun factor. If you give yourself tighter deadlines, your brain will come up with the ways and the ideas to do that in a shorter period of time. And this actually programs your entire biology. For example, I'm sure you know about the days where you are so engaged with certain tasks that you did not need as much sleep. You could just go to bed. After 3 hours, you're ready, fresh, get going, right? On the other hand, you probably had days where you had nothing to do and you felt tired all the time. Why is that? Why is it that on the days that I have nothing to do, I feel so tired, but on the days that I have almost no time even to sleep, my body gives me so much energy? The answer is a subconscious program. Because if you have nothing to do, kind of like, think of like your brain as this nice, wise old man. You go to the old man and says, subconscious mind, I need 2 apples. And the subconscious says, okay, there's 2 apples. And then the next guy goes and says, subconscious mind, I need 200 apples. He says, not a problem. There you go. We say your brain and your body releases as much energy, attention, and focus as you require it. And it does not give you any more or less, which means if you tell yourself, I want, that's what I told also my mentee, if you want, let's say you tell your brain, so I'm going to actually quit my job. This means I will have 20, let's say extra 20 hours per week for studying IELTS. But what will your subconscious mind think? It says, well, you don't really need that extra hour to get your IELTS done. You can still get very good results by 3 hours, but you give me 20 extra hours per week. Why not? So what happens? In that case, the body and the brain actually releases less energy in your nervous system, which means you will feel more tired. So the same job, the same IELTS studies you could have done in a matter of 5 days with 3 or 4 hours of study, you could now do it in a matter of 1 month with all the extra hours. And that is very inefficient in life, right? So the key, therefore, to becoming highly productive is to start giving yourself tight deadlines and have lots of pursuits simultaneously. And the people who get a lot of things done aren't doing that because they put basically, tight deadlines. The reason is that they have so many things to do that their brain, their body creates those habits and gives them the right emotional state. Again, it all comes down to emotion. Gives you the right emotional state to pursue your goals. And once you do that, you can actually easily get caught up with a lot more tasks. So what is my secret to get things done? Well, as you know, Pujix, I run multiple businesses, and learning different languages is only probably 5 or 6% of the, my time. My active time is actually dedicated to learning foreign languages. And I have a lot of pursuits simultaneously. And in various aspects of my life, whether it's, let's say, fitness, whether it is, for example, business, whether it's academia, whether it's writing, whether it's, social media, influencing, all those things. So the more things you start doing simultaneously, the less time you need to accomplish them. And that is why, if you look at, high achievers, long after they have reached, high net worths of $500 million or a few, even $1 billion, they're still hard at it working. Why is that? The answer is not more money, because they don't need it. They can't possibly even spend all that money in their whole lifetime. So why they keep working so hard? The answer is the emotional state, because these people have conditioned themselves for decades to be at peak state and work very hard. And now they get pleasure from all of that pursuit, right? So they create a lot more tasks, bigger projects, they get busy. And that is why they always have energy and they're always positive and uptight and upright, basically ready for their next projects. Because of this, if you really want right now, if you really want to get more things done, 10x all of your tasks. So if you have to do one thing, add 9 additional tasks to your list. For example, let's say you say, I want to pass this exam. Okay, add 9 extra things to your task. Say, I also want to improve my, let's say, fat ratio. So I want to burn extra fat. Number 2, I also want to run my business. Number 3, I want to be more active on social media. Number 4, I actually want to get a girlfriend or a boyfriend. I want to actually start a relationship, because that's going to take a lot of time. I also, at the same time, want to improve my skills in public speaking. At the same time, you see, like, you give yourself additional tasks. And here's the fun factor. Ironically, the same tasks that you would have accomplished in 1 month, if you gave yourself only one task, you can now accomplish all of those 10 tasks and still meet your deadline. And here's the difference. You will feel more energized and more happy and more excited. And that's exactly what I think you should be doing with your life. So how does Daniel speak all these languages? Well, very simple, because Daniel does not spend all his time learning languages. He's busy with a lot of other things. And that ironically gives him the energy that he needs and the mental space to let the brain learn these languages also at a subconscious level, right? And the same reason that I actually, how do I get to speak, I don't know, 20, 30 languages? Why? Very simple, because I never allow myself the luxury of just learning one language. So I have to learn multiple languages simultaneously. And the same thing applies to any other area of life. I never allow myself to only have basically one business. As of now, I'm running more than probably 7 businesses. And I'm in the process of starting 2 or 3 actually through businesses. One of them actually is with you, Pujix. So the point is, you want to get busy with a lot of things. That's the key in life. Numbers. Life is a numbers game. So you're going to try a lot of things. Many of them will not work. Some of them will work, and then you keep pushing through, and then you add more stuff. This is the key to doing a lot of things. It's, people got it backwards. They think like to do more things, you need more time. No, you need more tasks, and you will do them in the same time allotted to you. And if once you master the skill, once you start setting big goals and then 10x your life by doing a lot of extra other things, then you realize you can do much more than the average person in the same period of time, because we all get 24 hours per day, but that 24 hours is not spent equally. If you have, let's say 10 things to do in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, you do not have time to go on Instagram and randomly watch other people's posts, which is going to, a part of the answer I will give later on about one of the other questions about Instagram. If you have 10 things to do, when you wake up, your life is in a state of, let's just call it positive emergency, in that there are so many tasks to do, very little time to do it. So what do? You start deleting unimportant things. And that, from my perspective, is the key to productivity. To do and to be more productive, you need to actually stop doing things that are not important. And the way to do that is to give yourself a lot of tasks that will automatically remove them from your plans. People right now are saying things like, well, Dan, how do you learn all these languages? Well, let me tell you something. If you tell me right now about all the latest movies in the Hollywoods, I have no fucking clue. People around me talking like, Dan, have you watched this movie? Have you seen about that? Have you been to that concert? No. Because the same time that you spend randomly going on YouTube or watching, I don't know, the latest blockbuster, or, I don't know, goofing around or smoking Hubble Bubble in the cafe somewhere, or just chatting or chilling, or just, randomly playing some random games. The same time that you're spending randomly doing things, I am studying languages. I am working on my businesses. I am trying to, create a good relationship. So this is all about doing the things that are important, because I really believe that most of us are spending most of our times doing things that are not important, even at workplace. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, and I know that a lot of basically staff members, they're not working. I know a lot of my secretaries, they're not working all the time. So when they see me, they're all, they're ready to go. Oh, yes, I'm working very hard. But I'm pretty sure that they're spending most of their time randomly answering their messages, basically on their cell phones or doing other stuff, because it's proven that the average employee in the United States actually, and that's the U.S., which, as you know, is a very highly productive nation, works only half the time. The other half, they're wasting their time. They're fooling around, right? An average salesperson spends most of their time drinking coffee, chatting with their salesperson, and just making an average of, the average, salesperson in America makes the first sales call 11 in the morning. Whereas they actually come to the office at 8 and they make their first sales call 11 in the morning. And then you know what? I called 3 customers who said they didn't answer. Well, I got to go for lunch now, right? They go for a lunch break at 12. They come back, make, 4 or 5 phone calls. And then guess what? They're waiting for the last time and they leave the office at 4. Thank you very much. No sales made for today. Good job. You're going to be the top salesperson. The key here is productivity, man. We can do a lot more if we have the reason to do it. And the fact that I can do all these things is not because I am more efficient. It simply means that I am not wasting my time on a lot of things that let's waste our time on. And if you do the same thing, you'll get the exact same results. Very simple, right? You want to do more? Stop doing less important things and see how that will transform your whole life.
Awesome, man. This is great stuff. Now we are moving on to the next question, and that is slightly different topic. Do you not miss your country?
Well, as you know me, basically, I have this anthropological attitude towards life. So missing one country for me is very difficult because being in the same country for more than 1 month or 2 months just makes me crazy almost, because I have this passion for moving around and exploring different cultures. So do I miss? Of course. And I can't really wait to go back to New York City. But the fact of the matter is that I made a promise to myself when I left that city. I said, I'm not going to come back until I have realized and achieved all my dreams. I even made that promise to myself. And the fact of the matter is that of course, I can right now go back and just, stay there, have fun. But I have to, quit all of my ambitious goals and then just go back and see what happens. Well, I really believe that missing things, again, it's one of the things that you start doing less of when you start getting busy is missing things. Because if you don't have really time to miss things, you simply won't miss them, right? The fact of the matter is that once you're busy with so many things, then you don't have time to miss. Because in order to miss something, you should first sit down and say, well, I got now 5 minutes free time. Let's think about, oh, yeah, I really missed that thing, man, right? So missing things for me is a luxury that I cannot afford, along with a few other luxuries that I cannot afford, including excuses, laziness, and just chilling for no reason. So for that reason, I personally believe that it's best to be busy with your goals. If you're really busy with your goals, then you realize that it's very hard to miss, especially places. I mean, missing people is one thing because I have a lot of people that I miss right now, but missing places from my perspective is just meaningless for me. It just makes no sense. So the answer is no, but hopefully at some point when I get back, by then I've actually accomplished and realized all of my goals.
That's pretty good. And by the way, this past question was from Phil. I forgot to mention that. Now,
That's
the
right,
next question
sure.
is from Asim, and this is somewhat related, and that is, when was the last time you cried?
Oh, my goodness. So, well, first of all, that's a pretty cool thing because for so long, I'm going to actually ask you one question right now, Pujix, before I answer. What do you think about men crying? I'm actually curious about your opinion.
I don't really have a strong opinion either way.
You believe that it's is it okay for a man to cry? Do you think?
I don't. Yeah. I don't mind it. I don't really care.
Okay, very well.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm not against men crying at all because I believe that everybody has their emotional outlets. But usually it's proven psychologically that men, their major emotional outlets tend to be aggression and anger rather than crying. Mm-hmm. Now, does that mean that if a guy cries, it's bad? I don't think so. Not at all. But I myself definitely have had cases where I did cry. But generally, the 2 cases that happened to me that I remember right now, the first time actually I cried was when my grandpa passed away. And this happened, of course, about 6-7 years ago. And the second case was when I was watching a movie where it was, I felt very emotional in that moment, basically. And this movie was called 300 Spartans. And it was a part in that movie where he stood up against this dictator and he said, because the dictator actually told him that you want to fight me even though I am ready to kill my own people to win this war. And at that moment, he turned around and said, well, guess what? I am willing to die for every single one of my followers. And at that moment, I felt like this is true leadership. This is like real art of leadership. And I just felt very emotional. And of course, it was combined with the music, the epic, because I have this, one of my weak spots, if you will, is epic type of music that you find in certain epic movies. And that, statement combined with that epic background was really emotional for me. And at some point after that part, when basically the leader is killed, and then they're returned back to their homes, basically on these shields. At that moment, when I saw that like scene where this amazing leader and the people are basically they're killed and their bodies are being moved back to their homes, I just couldn't take it, and I started crying, and it was very, very emotional for me personally. But I do not tend to cry for problems because number one, I have a very different attitude about problems of any kind. Except for one thing, and I'll also explain that in my one of my posts, and that is losing someone that I care about. Because I really believe that if there's a problem, any problem, there's always a solution, always. But except for one thing, if I lose someone that I care about, because if they're dead, they're dead, and I can't do anything about this.
Unless
right?
they're Jesus.
So, well, that's possible. That's possible, man. So, with that being said, I really believe that for me personally, crying is permissible when I lose someone I care about, a family member, a loved one, somebody that I care about deeply. And of course, I've had a lot of cases where I did cry by being emotionally affected by certain basically imagery, of which was this epic movie, which really influenced me a lot. And I did actually feel a lot of emotions at the same time. So these are the things. But generally, I'm not a huge fan of resolving problems by getting negative. So when I see problems, I'm ready for action. I'm not there saying, oh my gosh, why it happened? That's not my style, really, for the most part.
All right, fair enough. Now, the next question is from Olga. She asks, when are you going to tell us about the Matrix of Life? And I gotta say, I think this is the question that I should be answering because it's mostly on me.
That's right.
And you know what? Let's make a pledge right now, right here, and we're gonna do this before you're gonna hear an episode on Matrix of Life before the end of September. Maybe sooner, but definitely before the end, like maximum the end of September. How's that?
Awesome, perfect. So you heard it, guys. We're gonna have one entire episode dedicated to the Matrix of Life. And as Pujic said, it'll be before September, for sure. Great, man. You already gave the answer.
Awesome. All right, moving on. Now, next question is from, Andre. How can you sleep less and still function well? Yeah, you're notorious about sleeping little.
That's right. Well, first of all, I'm not recommending people to stop sleeping less. This is not healthy. It is proven that there's a direct link between heart problems and lack of mental function and sleep deprivation. So I'm not in any way encouraging people to become sleep deprived. Number two, it's about your overall physical fitness. One of the reasons that I personally exercise once and occasionally twice per day is for this reason, because in order for you to sleep less, you have to have a body that has above average metabolism. This means that it's not just possible for anyone to just sleep 2 hours per day and just get ready by no problem. This has a lot of, genetic factors involved, as well as your overall fitness. With that being said, I mentioned earlier, the response goes back to what I also mentioned about having a lot of things to do, right? When you have a lot of things to do and you're in peak state emotionally, it becomes a lot harder actually to stay in the bed. Like there are some days where I go to bed and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a video conference, let's say 8 in the morning and this one. And since you are thinking about that, like you simply find it very difficult, if not offensive, just stay in the bed. Like you just can't stay in the bed. Like something is pushing you out. So I really believe that the key to, being very productive is to have things you really are passionate about. Because if you really care about something, then it's very hard to just stay in the bed. Even though Albert, basically Einstein once said, have big dreams and then go back to sleep and dream about them, right? So, of course, he was joking about this matter, but I really believe that you cannot do anything in the bed. I mean, there's one thing you can do in the bed, but that's probably not going to be part of this show today. But other than that thing that you can do in the bed, you just can't do anything in the bed, right? Let's be honest. I mean, there are very few things in the world that have been done in the bed, right? That, throughout the history, how many of the biggest events in history took place in your bedroom, right? So because of that, I really believe that you want to have big missions. And if you have big missions and combine them with a positive lifestyle, because nothing drains you of energy more than negativity. So I have this rule where as soon as I realize there are things or people or situations that are causing me emotions, I immediately remove them from my life. Like literally, that's one of the cheat sheets, if you will, and the tricks of sleeping less. You want to sleep less? Make sure that your brain is not exposed to a lot of negativity, because stress releases cortisol and a variety of other negative hormones. And the more negative you are throughout the day, the more energy you need to recover, and the more sleep you need, actually. It's proven. Like if you're very negative, you need sometimes 4 extra hours just to recover from that damage to the body, right? So the key to sleeping less and doing more things done is to remove all sources of negativity, especially the ones that are repeatedly happening from your life, because nobody can fully remove all negativity, right? But let's just say that if you're getting pissed off every morning in the traffic, well, maybe you should just sell your car and use public transportation. Maybe you should change your home and go to a place where you do not need to drive so much. If your client is always, unreliable, he says, "Oh, I'm going to meet you at this time," and then they get canceled, they're going to go at this time. All right, just remove them. This happens to me all the time. Like if I see somebody is flaky and who cannot be trusted, I just cut off twice. And they say, "So Dan, what is going to be our next meeting?" Like, "Oh, I'll call you later. Bye." And I will never contact the person ever again. Why? Because I know, as we discussed in the book, the laws of human nature, people never do anything once. So if there are people who are doing things that is causing you negative emotional experiences, trust me, they will do it again, because people never do things only once. So if you see this person is always acting so negative, or this employee is always late, or this employee is perhaps not working very well, or if this client is not going to be reliable, then trust me, if they cancel, they're going to cancel again. You want to be canceled over and over again, just get pissed off? No, remove them from your life. You remove weeds from the garden. And once you do these things, once you remove source of negativity, top of which is television, just because I never watched TV actually. Remove TV, remove most of these negative sorts of, basically influences. And more importantly, remove the people that cause you negative emotions on a consistent basis, because nobody's perfect, right? So yes, of course, your business partner is going to cancel your meeting once. It's going to happen. Maybe then twice. It's going to happen. But if you're seeing that this guy, like every other week, saying like, "Well, I got this thing going, so can we do the project next week?" Like, this guy is flaky. Just fucking cut him off, man. Just let him go and never work with this guy again. So once you do these things, once you see certain traits in people that you don't like, and you see they're being repeated, just remove these people without any, explanations from your life. Just even go ahead and block them if you want. No problem. Just remove them. And the same thing goes with activities or places. I mentioned traffic as one example, right? Or maybe you're in an environment that is causing you a lot of problems. Maybe in your neighborhood, there's a lot of noise in the background. You can't sleep at night. So the key here is remove any and all, source of negativity in your life. And that will mean you will have to burn less energy throughout the day. If you burn less energy and you have less stress, then you can easily sleep for 5 hours per day and have a lot of energy, right? So the key here isn't just about sleeping. It's about lifestyle management. If you're feeling negative or pissed off, or if you have no, self-confidence, all of these things are going to cause you problems. If you go to the office and you see the face of a guy that you hate, that person is going to cause you a lot of negative emotions. Remove that person from your office. Or if you're working there, quit your job, find a different job. Once you remove negativity from your life and the people that cause you negative emotions on a regular basis, you'll find yourself in a spot where you're losing less energy. And this is efficiency. If you want to sleep less and get more things done, be efficient. And the key to be efficient is to remove negativity of all kinds. TV, movies. Most movies are garbage. Nowadays, look at Hollywood. Violence and sex. It is absolutely not true. Remove all this crap from your life and focus on doing the things that matter. And I can promise you will have the same issue, and you will not need to sleep 9 hours every day to actually get a lot done, basically. That way, you can get by fewer hours, and you'll actually enjoy and be healthier as well.
On the subject of negativity, Nusha asks, what do you think about marriage?
Oh, boy.
I think that tells you about what I think.
I love the correlation, Pooja. On the subject of negativity, what do you think of marriage? I think we all know what that means. But the point is, marriage is a very great thing. I think that marriage is an old tradition that has been established since the dawn of, let's say, time, if you will, since the dawn of history. But in reality, it actually goes back to the agricultural age. So the purpose of marriage was neither love nor romance, nor was it about infatuation. The purpose of marriage since the dawn of history, more specifically from the dawn of the agricultural age, was to make sure that your properties, especially the land, were passed on to your own children and to your genes. Because at that time, we did not have measures like DNA kits, or you cannot just go to let's say, a drugstore, get a DNA kit, and with 99% accuracy know that this son or this daughter is actually your son or daughter. So for that reason, marriage was created as a means of making sure that women and men were sexually exclusive. And because of this, the children were theirs and not someone else's. And as we know, of course, as statistics have already proven, almost half of marriages around the world globally end in divorce, and 3 out of 4 couples admit to have cheated on their partners, basically on some levels throughout their lives. So is this an efficient formula for relationships? I'm not sure. I don't think so. If you also look at like Jeff Bezos, who not long ago actually lost over $45 billion on a basically divorce case, financially speaking, it's also not very feasible. So if you have certain financial goals in life, then you might want to be careful about marriage, basically, and you want to have some sort of agreement that protects you against it. With that being said, what I really care about is family, is love, and is basically having children, because for me personally, that's a very interesting thing, and I think that everybody should aspire to it. But the fact of the matter is that marriage, as it is today, it's nothing more than basically a socioeconomic contract designed to help men or women create this coalition that is enforced by law, and that there are consequences against it. I personally think this is not the right approach to do relationships. While I'm a huge fan of basically monogamy, especially serial monogamy, in that you have a relationship, it's monogamous, it's one-on-one, but if you realize it's not win-win, you move on to the next basically partner. Both sides should actually do that. So I really believe that marriage, in this typical sense, probably is not very efficient, because it's no longer necessary. In the modern world, we do not need to get married to make sure that my son or my daughter is my son or daughter. This will be done easily by a simple kit you can buy basically for $99 in a drugstore, right? And at the same time, if you're really talking about love, because sometimes people say, well, what about love, Dan? Well, if you really care about love, then love knows no boundaries and knows no documents. So if you really want to actually experience true love should be based upon emotions and not contracts. So for the same reason that you cannot basically think of marriage as a means of getting more love, it also is not very financially wise. So am I a fan of getting married? Of course not. I think that getting married in the modern world is not necessary. As we discussed in one of our seminars, literally yesterday it was, as you guys know, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. That's what I heard in the seminar. And they said that Cristiano Ronaldo actually has a couple of babies from his girlfriend, and they're not married yet. Is that true, by the way?
I'm not sure. Maybe it could be.
That's right.
It makes sense.
That's what I heard, basically. But this has been done again and again by various celebrities. So it is possible to be in a loving, monogamous relationship without marriage and even raise kids. But the document and the paperwork itself, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that's necessarily for me, nor is it necessarily the best approach towards relationships. However, am I a fan of loving, monogamous committed relationships? Yes, of course I am. Am I a fan of romance? You bet. I love romance more than anybody else. But does that mean that you should necessarily have a document to prove it? I don't think that necessarily makes it very emotional or romantic.
On the subject of Cristiano Ronaldo, typically when you see their profile, it says spouse, but in his case, it says partner. So I guess it could be true.
That's right. Very well. I thought so. Because it's a movement, really, because I really believe that if you are enforcing your relationship with a contract, then this is because I'm a business person, and I've spent a lot of my time, as you know, avoiding a lot of the paperwork to avoid paying less taxes. So when it comes to all sorts of paperwork, I'm a little bit, suspicious, including when it comes to running my companies and businesses, because I would like to, let's be honest, pay less taxes. So when it comes to marriage, you can imagine if I do not like paperwork for my businesses, you can imagine how I feel about marriage.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Next question is from Carl, and he asks, do you act differently in different situations? Do you have two lives that are different? I suspect what he's trying to get at is multi-personality, depending on who you're dealing with.
Or maybe like being two-faced or hypocritical. Yeah. I get it all the time.
In a negative connotation or a positive one, even. I don't know.
Well, for sure. To answer, his name was Carl, right?
Yeah.
That's right. To answer Carl, I'm going to say yes. Because if you are someone who believes that you're acting the exact same in every situation, then you lack what we call social intuition. You cannot talk to your father the same way you talk to your boss, the same way you talk to your president, the same way you talk to a child. So part of social intuition and social calibration is your ability to adjust your behavior based upon the social situation. So of course, we have a lot of people who are not like that. And in the modern world, unfortunately, we see a lot of those examples among celebrities. The very fact that people love simple answers, that's what is wrong, I think, with the current mindset in the modern world, and that people want easy answers. Because let's be honest, if you're always the same person all the time and you have the exact same behavior all the time, then that's a hell of a lot easier, man. I mean, come on, it's much easier to be the same person all the time, right? I mean, whoever talked to you always talk like this, right? Never change your tonality, never change your approach. Do not choose your words wisely. Just say whatever the fuck comes to your mind. That's called, being, I don't know, perhaps super modern, or I don't know, whatever it is. But from my perspective, people who are achieving good things in life are thoughtful about what they say, about what they do, and they are strategic. They know what are the outcomes in a situation, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. And since I'm a huge fan of strategy, planning, and organization, I really believe that if you want to get the most out of life, you cannot be the same way. I mean, you do not dress the same way when you're addressing an audience of, let's say, 200 versus when you're in your living room, basically in front of TV. So you have to be, I mean, you just simply don't do that, right? You do not dress the same when you're sleeping in your bedroom versus you're sleeping in your, let's say, friend's house, right? So it's quite normal and quite natural and quite right for people to adjust their behavior based upon their environments. And I believe that if you're not doing that, then you probably lack social intuition. And for that reason, of course, there are many situations where I tend to be a lot more informal, where I tend to use more dark type of humor. There are situations where I never use any humor whatsoever. There are cases where I tend to be a lot more serious. There are cases where I tend to be a lot more friendly. So I really believe that if you want to achieve the objectives you want in life, you should know what is my outcome in every situation. If you're in a business meeting, your goal is not to make that person think that you're super friendly. You want this guy to be afraid of fucking you over. So when I go to a business meeting, my first goal is this: don't fuck with me. Because if you do that, there will be consequences. And I should send that message. I cannot send that message if I'm overly friendly, right? Because the person should know that, dude, this guy knows his stuff. If you fuck with this guy, he's going to fuck you over. So I better stay away, right? So now, if I'm, let's say, on a date with my, let's say, partner, that's a whole different dynamic. Here, of course, this is not business. This is about love and emotions. Of course, they're going to be different. Of course, we're going to be more friendly. So let's go back to business. The person says something. Of course, I will have to super analyze what that person or client said, because that's going to affect the whole future of the business. So I have to be overly cautious. When it comes to, let's say, hanging out with my friends, of course, I'm not going to think it so much that think it over. Like, I'm going to take it easy. Like, even okay, let's just fool around. Who the hell cares, right? So you want to have the skill and the ability to have this what I call polarities, or opposing opposing skills and talents. Today, actually, I put a post on danmulgan.com about this issue. It's in the Books in a Nutshell regarding the book called The Dichotomies of Leadership. So
such
leadership
a good book. Love it.
It's a very great. Have you actually read the book, by the way?
Yeah,
Pritchett?
yeah, audiobook, but yeah.
It's wonderful. And the art of leadership is having opposing qualities simultaneously. You are selfish and you're selfless. You're kind and you're dangerous. You are trustable, and at the same time, you make people somehow fear you. You want to have these opposing qualities, and you cannot have those dichotomies, as mentioned by Jocko Willink, and have the same behavior every single time. That's simply not possible. And if you are that person, then the chances are you have a boss or some manager or some father figure or whoever takes care of you, because people like that cannot survive and thrive in our society.
Very good. Moving on to the next question. John asks, why don't you follow anyone on Instagram?
Well, that's right. I've been asked this question, I think, maybe a zillion times. Every time I get a new, usually those among my friends who follow me, because if they're, because I get two types of followers, the ones that follow me just on Instagram, I don't know them. And of course, for me, they're all important, and I would do my very best to provide good content for all of them. And there are, of course, but this usually happens among my friends who know me. Like, they say, well, and sometimes they're very tend to be very indirect, like, so Dan, I followed you, by the way, at that time. Maybe you should check it out. And sometimes they literally listen, dude, follow me, my friend, follow me right now. So the question is this: why is that case? Because I really believe that Instagram, the way it's being used by most people, is not right, and it's a complete time waster. Secondly, Instagram is highly addictive. Unlike Twitter or LinkedIn, which are my other two major platforms, Instagram is the one platform that you can literally spend hours on it and not know how the time is passing by. Because Instagram is about photos and videos. It involves a lot less text, although in my posts, as you've probably seen, I emphasize heavily on text, because that's education, that's brain, that's not just, brainless stuff. But secondly, it's generally very time consuming, because we have this natural tendency to find out about people. So you get one post from your friends, they want to check out all the other friends. Now the friends have another friend, you want to check these guys out. So Instagram is a highly addictive as well as highly immersive experience, because of the emphasis on photos and videos, and the fact that it's so easy to post anything you want. So because of this, and now as it's been proven now, it is exceeding Facebook in popularity in terms of branding and all those things. So when you think of this platform that is so busy, and if you already, you've already mentioned about the importance of time management, if you have all these things to do and you don't want to waste any time, you simply don't follow anybody. Why is that? Because if I don't follow someone, it means I'm not supposed to like their photos, nor am I supposed to answer a lot of questions, nor this, and this is going to free up a lot of time, man. So in this case, I will be able to actually save a tremendous amount of time that would have otherwise been not done. Because in the past, I've done the experiment where I followed a lot of people, and then I simply did not, check out their posts nor liked. And I felt that these guys actually got offended because I feel like, dude, you're following, you're checking my photos, but you're not liking, man. I'm feeling very upset. So I realized of course, I've been doing this for a while now, as you know, Pooja. It's been about 2-3 years where I do not follow anybody on Instagram. It's because it has worked, because people know that, sorry, I'm busy and I don't have a lot of time. So this way, I'm more than glad to share with you my thoughts and ideas. And it's, of course, your choice. You'd be more than welcome to actually check it out. But ultimately, if I have to follow you and then I don't like your post, maybe you're going to be upset. So I prefer actually not to do that. However, if you've seen me on other platforms, on Twitter and on LinkedIn, I follow basically everybody like there. Like if you right now go on Twitter, if you go on LinkedIn, you see that basically it's a very different dynamic, because Twitter and LinkedIn are very different than Instagram. It's only about texts. It's more professional, whereas LinkedIn whereas Instagram could be used in abusive ways. So for that reason, I said, like, this one platform, Instagram, is the exception. So here, I prefer to actually just produce content and not consume content.
Guys, he fucking doesn't even follow me, and I'm so upset. No, I'm not. I'm just kidding.
That's right.
I'm just kidding, of course. Of course, I'm not kidding. Okay, next question is from Farid, and he asks, you're really funny in talk shows. Why are you so funny? What the fuck, man? Why are you being a stand-up comedian here?
Well, that's right. Well, first of all, thank you very much. What's his name?
Farid.
Farid. Thank you very much, Farid, for your compliment. I appreciate it. I really believe that sense of humor, like any other skill, and make sure to know this is a skill, could be learned. And you might not believe this. You might think that my sense of humor is just random and I've always been like this. No, I haven't. I've never, until the age of 16, I didn't even know what humor was actually, right? Let alone make people laugh. So I have studied humor basically in depth. I have read many books about this concept, and I understand humor. Because if you want to get good at humor, you have to study it like any other subject. Because you can't just, some people are born with it, like they're really born smart and they're really good at, basically making people laugh. But I have studied humor in depth for many years, and of course had a lot of performances to learn which ones work, which ones doesn't, because learning humor is one thing, practicing is something else. So I've been both studying humor and been using it basically in public events until I've learned it basically. So if you want to get better at, making people laugh, trust me, you can do it. Just start studying humor. There are various courses and books available, and you can actually get ready, basically understanding the basics and the fundamentals of humor, and almost anyone can get good at becoming basically funnier.
It's very good. I have to say, humor is awesome. I love humor. I just have to say this. Okay, next question. Of course,
everybody loves, because humor is it's a bonding tool, man. Like when you make people laugh, you're becoming their friends, right? I mean, they say the first thing that enters a good relationship is a laughter, and the first thing that leaves basically a good relationship, a bad relationship, is that laughter. So the moment there's no laughter in a relationship, boom, something's wrong, man. We're losing friends here, right?
Yeah, we're in bad territory. Okay, next question. Arash, he asks, what do you do if your friends betray you or try to dominate you?
Well, this is I wasn't quite sure exactly what he meant by betray or dominate, because these are like very totally different things, obviously.
That's true. Okay, let's stick with betray.
Yeah, I'm going to go actually with both one by one, okay. But I'm going to start with betray, as you mentioned yourself. Well, betrayal, what does betrayal mean? Betrayal is when you do something against somebody else for your own benefits, right? And as you know, basically, Pooja, I believe in win-win. So in all of my relationships, I have one basically motto: win-win or no deal, which I learned basically from Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So you are basically, if you are in a relationship with me, then this is a win-win relationship. It means that I am winning and getting benefits from this, and so are you. So by betraying me, I don't know what that means basically, but let's just say, I don't know, perhaps we're working on the project and then you take, I don't know, let's say you take the project for yourself, or we have an idea and I share with you, and then you steal the idea and make your own company with it, whatever it is, right?
So ultimately, like case, essentially, let's say I betray your trust as a friend.
Exactly. That's right. So in that case, I really believe that, first of all, you are making a huge mistake, because you're going to lose me forever. Because most people who know me that I have a very good memory. And there are things that people have told me 8-9 years ago. I remember which day they told me, what time, how was the weather, what was the condition, what were they wearing, and what exactly they said.
Oh, so you remember that thing. Damn.
Yes.
Didn't know that.
And because of this, I'm one of those people where I remember everything that everybody has ever told me, all their behaviors, all their actions. It's very hard for me to forget it, basically. And because of this, yes, you might betray me or take this away, and you might go and come back after 1 year pretending that I've forgotten, but I won't. I will never forget these things. And because of this, if somebody ever does that, then that means that that relationship is essentially over unless and until that person apologizes and changes their behavior. But if they come back after a year or two or even 5 years thinking I've forgotten things, no, I haven't. And those smiles after 5 years will not fool me. So because of this, when that happens, I know very well what my basically conditions are. I know who that person is and what they want. So they will lose a key partner probably for the rest of their lives. And that's their loss, not mine. Number one. Number two, in none of my relationships do I tend to create complete dependency. I've always lived by the motto of the more options you have, the more freedom you have. So I'm always, in all of my basically plannings, I always plan for what if I lose this key ally in this situation. And I always have plans for this in all my businesses. I ask myself, so if I lose this person in my business, what will I do? And I already make the plans. And I have this motto called make the plan B before plan A. So before I begin a relationship with anyone, I've already planned what I will do and what is my exit strategy if I have to leave that relationship. And I will never begin a relationship until I have that exit strategy first. Otherwise, we just tend to, remain distant until I find that relationship or I find that strategy. For that reason, how will I feel if I get betrayed? Well, number one, that person will lose me probably forever because I'm one of those guys who probably will never forget his or her behavior. Number two, in that case, I probably will not be very upset. Why? Because I really believe in the power of forgiveness. Why? Nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes. I have done a lot of things myself throughout my life, and I probably will keep doing those things. So the next part is forgiveness. And I tell this, I say, forgive them for you, not for them. Because if you want to remain hateful, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what he or she said, who are you harming? That person or yourself? So after cutting ties, I will then, of course, implement my exit strategy as I already have it. So I know, okay, this person has left. Now we're going to go with plan B. And this is the plan B, which I already planned before we got into a relationship. And second step, of course, is forgiveness. Why? It is very important to understand that nobody is perfect and that people make mistakes. And forgiveness is being able to forgive them for being human. They say to err is human. And my doors will always be open for those person so long as they change their behavior. That is, I am not one of those who say, okay, you've done this. It's over forever. It's over forever for as long as you remain the same person. But if that person changes their behavior, that is, first they apologize and then they change their behavior. And then I realize they're really sincere about their behavior. Of course, they'll be welcome back to my social circle. If not, they'll be outcast probably for good. So it depends on these things. And for that reason, if every time I face with basically betrayal, I know what to do with it and I will not be very upset because I have these strategies. However, here's the good thing about business that I've learned over the years. I tend to put all of my, especially important contacts, through a trial, a series of tests. Now, it might not seem like a test at first, even to them, basically, but generally, the more important relationship is for me, the more I tend to put that person through a variety of tests and trials to see their characters and understand who they are. And only after that, I realize, okay, this is the person's character. I know whether or not I can rest and create, let's say, a team or something with that person. And for that reason, it rarely happens. I mean, we said about this betrayal, but in the past probably 10 years of my life, there hasn't been a single case where anybody that I was in a relationship with betrayed me. Not a single case. I can't remember even one, right? Why is that? Because I do my homework first. So before I start business with some person, I analyze their behavior. Who are they? What are their behaviors? I've been through a couple of tests, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, sometimes subtly, sometimes to see their characters. Because for me, it's very important who these people are and what are their characters. For example, if I see certain traits of, let's say, for example, envy, I know that this person should not be in my team. Because if this person is envious or jealous, then he or she at some point will fuck up the whole team, right? So I will be very polite with them. I'll be very friendly, but they will never see me in the same office. They will never be a part of my actual team, right? On the other hand, the ones that I pick are the ones that I fully trust. And when I trust them, this means that oftentimes these trusts are founded upon solid roots, which means I should never worry about them ever again. And in that case, fortunately, touch the wood. Fortunately, I've never had this problem in the past decade, if you will, of ever being betrayed. And I don't think I'll ever have this problem because I'm the kind of person who will do my homework for team building first. First, I know the person, and then I will build teams. And once I had the fortune and the honor of being with a lot of great people around me. One of those people actually is you yourself, Pujix. And when I have these people around me, I fully trust them, and they're part of my team. And it's my job to serve them, and it's my job to be there, basically there for them. And of course, I appreciate all of their help and advice as well. So when I create these win-win relationships, I don't have to worry about trust because I rarely pick people that are not trustworthy to become my basically in my social circle. And for that reason, I don't have to worry about anything.
Lovely. And our last question is from Ali. And he asks, have you ever smoked pot? And what do you think about
well,
smoking?
I got this one literally like probably today, was it? Like very recently. I'm absolutely against all forms of drugs because I believe that drugs is nothing more than escapism. Why people use drugs and also to some extent alcohol? They just want to escape. And the reason that you want to escape means you have not made a life that is worth living. So if your life is boring too many days in a row, the problem isn't life. The problem is you. You should change your lifestyle. Maybe you feel like your life is full of stress and you escape all that stress because ultimately drugs are a tool to escape two major negative emotions for most people. Number one, stress. Number two, boredom, which is why we see a lot of drug abuse among, let's say, stockbrokers as well as college students. If you're a college student, basically, you have a lot of free time. You get fucking bored all the time. You don't know what to do, right? So you start doing pot. And if you're, let's say, a stockbroker, you're always stressed. You got to do that to calm yourself down, right? So I believe that it all comes down to managing your emotions. Once you learn how to manage your emotions and avoid a lifestyle that is excessively stressful or excessively boring, you will not need drugs. As a matter of fact, you will hate drugs because that will, keep you away from, pursuing your passion in life. For that reason, no, I have never basically done drugs. I have never smoked cigarettes. And I do not like this behavior. And anytime I see anyone among my friends who's basically a smoker, not even like drugs, even like cigarettes, my first advice is quit and quit as soon as possible because I believe that's not important because ultimately there's a lot of great ways to make yourself happy. And the best way is lifestyle design. If you are using pots on a regular basis, there's a reason. There's a reason. It means you're either too bored on a regular basis or you're too stressed. And that means the problem is you. You have designed a wrong lifestyle that is causing you to escape that stress or boredom by drugs. And I'm against that because everything I teach is based upon this, designing a lifestyle for success and happiness. Once you focus on that lifestyle, you will not need drugs. And that's not because you don't you somehow have to have self-discipline and willpower to not want him. You just have no desire for it. For you, it's something that is it's actually very negative. You hate it. You don't even want to do it actually, right? So for that reason, no, I've never actually smoked pot. I never smoked cigarettes, and I do not recommend people to do that. However, with that being said, I know, again, people are in different stages of development. So maybe you still have to work on yourself to develop a lifestyle where you have less basically stress or less boredom. But until then, maybe you have to use pot as an escape route. I'm not completely against it because it's proven that pot is not necessarily as addictive. And now across the U.S., in a few states, it's actually legal. I'm sure also the same goes in Canada and also Europe. So the point is, if you smoke pot, is at the end of a relationship? No. But please, don't offer it to me because I'm not going to take it.
But it's the good stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
That's right. By the way, Pujix, I'm actually curious. Now we're, basically recording this. Have you ever done pot?
I have, yes.
Oh my gosh. How's the feeling, by the way? Like, because I don't know how the feeling is.
Well, it depends. It actually really depends on the composition of the chemicals. Some of them are high THC, etc. So some like the ones that I really like are the ones that are super calming. It makes me like I'm a little bit of a hyper person. Like I'm always moving my body, like my legs or whatever. I'm doing stuff, etc. So I like that experience of every now and again. I mean, I don't smoke it regularly by any stretch of the imagination, but I like those ones that are making me super calm because it's like I have zero care for the world. It's awesome.
My! And tell me, like, is it addictive by the way or not?
I don't think so. So pots in the classifications, the formal classifications by addictive, they mean they actually have chemicals that you are biologically wired to use it. Like you have
Exactly.
no escape. Now, there's also another level of addiction that you also basically mentioned, and that is when you are basically it's your reward system being activated. So you're basically rewarding yourself with this behavior, so you become quote unquote addicted in a sense that like addiction to chocolate or whatever. So if it's because you're constantly rewarding yourself with bad behavior, now your bad behavior becomes becomes a habit. It's rather a habit than an addiction. So in terms of becoming a habit, it could become a habit for sure, but it's not like cocaine. Like cocaine, even if,
so.
Yeah.
So that I think is much better than, like, I don't know, other types of drugs like cocaine or whatever.
Yeah.
But still, I really believe that if you focus on designing your lifestyle in a different way, that you are experiencing what we call this sort of flow most of the time, you probably will never need drugs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not actually at all interested in drugs on a regular basis or anything. And this is not even alcohol. You know that. Like, I'm not consuming alcohol at all, actually. So
wow.
So those are those things are not really that interesting to me. But I do like the occasional social aspect of them too. It's
fantastic.
It's pretty fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Very well. Any questions left?
No, that was all. Actually, we had our
longest programs, right?
Exactly. I was just gonna say that, and it was a very good program because we covered a lot of subjects and a lot of things all at the same time. It was awesome. Thanks for all your questions.
Actually, first of all, I should say to all of our audience, this idea, again, like all the other ideas about BTP and many other things that you don't probably know about, like including my website, all those things, is basically because of Pujix. I mean, almost everything that I'm doing nowadays is almost probably on a social media level. It's because of Pujix. So if you really enjoyed this show, please just go on Pujix, social media pages, and thank him, because that was actually his idea, like almost all the other ideas that we had before. So he's the genius and the mastermind behind all of this. So please do not thank me. Go to basically Puya LJ on Instagram or on Twitter or whatever and thank him, because ultimately he's the brain behind everything, basically.
Thanks, man. It's I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, buddy.
And thank you. Thank you, all of you, for the amazing questions that you sent up, Dan. There were really good questions. I had a lot of these questions. I actually asked you a lot of these questions before in person.
I remember that.
Yeah. And thank you for giving us the time, Dan, answering all these questions. Awesome questions.
My pleasure, buddy. Thank you for arranging everything, and thank you for this amazing idea to create the ADA edition.
ADA. It's going to become a thing. All right. Until a later episode. See you soon.